The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Laurentino Cortizo Cohen, President of the Republic of Panama. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Laurentino Cortizo Cohen, President of the Republic of Panama, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Su Excelencia,
Excellency Abdullah Shahid, President of the 76th Session of the United Nations General Assembly. Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Heads of State and Government, distinguished delegates. Panama welcomes the holding of this 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly at a time of great challenges for humankind. Last year, during my statement to the General Assembly, I mentioned that the route towards the building of a different world in the post-pandemic era meant anticipating actions which would make it possible to lay the basis for deep-rooted structural changes. Heads of state and government. The pandemic has struck all of us equally, and its passage has revealed most bluntly the deep-rooted inequalities of our societies at the regional, but also at the global level. In the light of this reality, we can opt for an alternative which would lead us to division, conflict, and indifference. Or we could take a path leading us to unity and solidarity. The pandemic has highlighted that in today's interconnected world, the only path to the survival of humankind, must be guided by solidarity. Our decisions today matter. I repeat, our decisions today matter. They will have good consequences or bad consequences today, tomorrow, and in the long term. Ladies and gentlemen, Panama has opted to build a future which is sustainable and inclusive. Although, even in the midst of a pandemic, we are calling for a national dialogue with a view to take wise decisions which would last longer than the term of a single government. This dialogue, which we have called the Bicentennial Pact, Closing Gaps, this dialogue was built through broad consultation with the support of the United Nations, acknowledging that all citizens must make proposals and make contributions to lay the basis for a Panama which is more just, more inclusive, and more united. With respect to the Bicentennial Pact, the High Commissioner for Human Rights of the United Nations, Michelle Bachelet, stated the following, and I quote, "What they're doing in Panama can be considered an example for many other nations. You have in your hands a great opportunity." Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic has imposed monumental challenges on the nations of the world. One of those challenges is vaccinations. And in the case of Panama, our country acted with foresight, and we were able to procure sufficient, safe, and effective vaccines for our entire population. Thanks to that, we are only weeks away from achieving collective immunity. However, the goal cannot be that some countries reach herd immunity, when the objective must be that we all reach global immunity. Another major challenge that our region faces is delivering the necessary aid to our population in the midst of these very difficult circumstances brought about by the pandemic, thus contributing to maintaining living conditions and social peace. Since the start of the pandemic, our government has prioritized the delivery of food and basic inputs to those who have lost their sources of income, especially among the most vulnerable sectors of the population. And for that, we coordinated a plan with two initiatives. One of them involves transferring funds to those most affected through digital vouchers, and the other involved distributing packages of food and inputs to those who live in the difficult-to-reach areas. This plan, which has been in effect since March 2020, has evolved following the course of the pandemic. And in the new stage, its recipients must choose between offering a social community service or obtaining job training through courses which are offered by the government. Now it's a social relief plan with shared responsibility. The program's effectiveness was acknowledged by the Organization of American States, the OAS, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Furthermore, according to the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, CEPAL, Panama is one of the two countries of Latin America which managed to reduce extreme poverty indices in 2020 during the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, another challenge which we are facing and which many nations are facing is irregular migration, a historic and ongoing phenomenon to which we cannot remain indifferent. So far in 2021, more than 80,000 irregular migrants have crossed Panamanian territory. And this figure is growing exponentially. To understand the seriousness of the situation, Panama went from receiving 800 migrants in January of this year to receiving 30,000 migrants last month. The majority of these migrants come from the Caribbean and Africa, and they have crossed several countries in difficult conditions. Our country, in a responsible fashion and respectful of human rights, has treated these migrants with dignity, and we offer them, for the first time in their crossing, temporary shelter, medical assistance, and food. And we have devoted a large part of our limited resources to these tasks. As I say, a large part of our limited resources to these tasks. Panama is doing its part, and now we call upon the international community to make a joint effort as swiftly as possible with coordinated strategies and resources, and I repeat, resources, to anticipate a regional humanitarian crisis of grave proportions. This is all of our responsibility. And I repeat, it's the responsibility of all of us. And it must happen now. I've heard many speeches with many profound statements, but we have to go from speeches to concrete action. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest challenge that we have before us after the pandemic is climate change. The existing disbelief over climate change and its effects must be history. All of the serious problems that our planet is facing are related to climate change. What more do global leaders need to understand this very grave reality? And I ask, what more do the leaders of the world need to understand this very tragic reality? How many more speeches do we need to hear in different fora and conferences to understand that this is an extremely high priority? And even in this area, Panama is doing its part. We are one of the 3 countries of the world classified as being carbon negative. I repeat, we are one of the 3 countries in the world which is carbon neutral. In Panama, the country with the best maritime and air connections in Latin America and the Caribbean. In this country, this transit country with a logistical vocation, we have understood that what is good for the planet is good for the economy. And it's good for each and every one of our countries. Panamanians have assumed the responsibility of being blessed with one of the greatest biodiversities in the world. Panama is a global blue leader, complying with the 30x30 initiative to protect 30% of our oceans, a goal which we have achieved 9 years before the date set for 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, Panama is proposing to be once again a bridge to bring nations closer together, to seek common solutions to problems, common and concrete solutions to the problems we are facing, and to tackle regional and global challenges. We can do so with a roadmap which is marked by solidarity and respect for human rights. We can do so through broad and honest dialogue, focusing the international effort on maintaining social peace, in providing the necessary vaccines to all of the countries, and I repeat, to all of the countries, to save lives, to preserve health, and to lead us all as swiftly as possible to a global economic recovery. For all of these challenges, the future is now. Let's make no mistake about it. For all of these major challenges, the future is now. Enough with philosophy. Enough with words. Enough with our promises. The time has come for truth. The time has come for action. Panama is doing its part. Thank you very much.
On behalf of General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Panama for the statement just made.